He's back!
Well, I'm here with Brian Bullock. We actually just practiced the name right before this, just so we make sure it's beautiful and perfect. Um,
Absolutely.
how are you, bro?
Man, I'm good. I'm alive. I'm well. I'm COVID free. I have
Um,
zero complaints. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. My pastor actually got COVID, and he it's like, it's not that
Eh,
bad, but it was like it's the normal, typical flu, I guess. But
Got it. Yeah, it's hitting different people different ways. But if
right.
you don't have it,
Mm.
it is your responsibility to enjoy your life and be happy and be grateful. Okay.
I thought you were gonna say it's your responsibility to not get it. And I was like, Amen.
No, I wear your mask, do all that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I think sometimes people who don't have it, we take for granted that we don't have it. So it's like
right.
there are a lot of people who do have it who are struggling and stressing. So if you don't have it, you ought to say, "Thank you, Jesus."
Amen. Amen. So, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, what living a legacy even means. What does all this mean for our viewers?
My name is Brian Bullock, and young dude born in Boston, Massachusetts. Go New England Patriots and Red Sox, Celtics. Grew up in the inner city and single mom, absent dad. Father was addicted to drugs, in and out of the home. Grew up around a lot of poverty. Grew up around a lot of gang violence, all the type of stuff that you see sort of in the inner city kind of environment. But the good thing, my mom, man, she was such a great mom. She was raising three boys on her own, and she took me to church. My mother literally took me to church. I am a believer in the local church
Yes.
because I know what the local church did for me personally. And I happened to go to a family church where my grandfather really was like the main minister in the church. And he was the one that really taught me legacy. He was the one that would look at me and say, "Look, son, grandson, this is what a Bullock does. This is who a Bullock is. A Bullock wears a tie. A Bullock prays."
Come on.
And Martin Luther King said these words about his professors in Morehouse. He said they placed a crown on our heads so large that we would spend the rest of our lives trying to grow tall enough to fit into.
Wow.
And that's what my grandfather did. He put a crown on my head so large that it would take me the rest of my life trying to grow tall enough to fit into. So I started preaching when I was 7. I was teaching Bible class when I was 12, 14 years old. I got ordained as a minister when I was 18. I became a youth pastor in my 20s. We had the largest youth group in my city in Boston. I ended up moving a few years ago to Denver, Colorado, to be the worship pastor at the Potter's House of Denver, where I served under the executive leadership of Bishop T.D. Jakes. And now I am in North Carolina. I'm the young adults pastor for one of the largest churches here in the area, serving a congregation of over 10,000 members with Pastor Andy Thompson. And man, I wrote a book at the beginning of this pandemic, released a book called Living for Legacy, creating a blueprint for a life that matters. And man, it's just taken the world by storm. I've ended up on interviews and podcasts because people really care about this message of legacy. It's the message that saved my life, and I believe it's the message that will save others.
Come on. It's so awesome. I'm so blessed just to have you on, bro. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. I've watched your social for months. We've just been connected, messing a little bit. And it's funny, like before you even really launched this book, I was like, this guy is building a legacy. Regardless of a book, regardless of lots of followers, none of that is really the reason. Besides the fact of you're just serving Jesus, and
Yeah.
I'm super pumped just to kind of dive in. Um, so how did you even become passionate about ministry? So the difference of like just attending church, going with your mom and your fam, like what was move the needle of like, I feel like I'm called to this.
Not unfortunately. I'll say this: I didn't pick ministry. Ministry picked me.
Yeah.
When I was born, my mother would tell you that as a child, she would take me to the bank, and I'd be preaching outside the banks. Do you want to know Jesus? Do you want to know Jesus? My mom bought me a car, a car, toy car when I was younger. I would be steering the wheel, pretending that I'm going to a speaking engagement to go preach somewhere and minister. So before I even knew who I was preaching and singing. For when I was in middle school, they had a dress up day, career day. I dressed up as an attorney. I put on a suit and tie, brought a briefcase. When I walked through the door, they said, "Look, the pastor's here." I said, "No, no, no, I'm an attorney." They said, "No, no, 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 you like a preacher to me, preacher to me." I'm like,
Come on.
so it's in my blood, it's in my DNA. It picked me, and I want to say that for people who may be watching, man, who the enemy has literally tried to keep you away from ministry. He tries to attack you when you're young because there's a call on your life, but you know that something's bothering you. I know dudes right now who are somewhere drunk, smoking weed, doing all kind of crazy stuff, but they keep feeling this thing. They're running from something, and it's really God saying, "You know what you were born to do. You
Wow.
know what you were called to do." I'm the dude that just happened to say yes at a young age. But ministry picked me, man. I try my best. Even now, I go to church and I'll be like, I'm just going to sit in the back. I'm just going to hang out.
Come on.
Before you know it, I'm on a microphone saying something, doing something. It's
Yeah.
my calling.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree on that. Just more lines like, I'm like, no. And people always say like, you're gonna be a pastor. No, it's like don't put that on me. No, 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 I don't want that. I don't want that weight. And all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, like realize it before you even know it. Like one yes turns into really life you get to live, which is just to minister. Like you said, the big word for me was local church. So just kind of segue into that. What is something this past season that you would want to tell the local church? Like, what does the local church need to know from Brian Bullock today?
I would say if I'm talking to the local church, I would say to the local church that just because things are new doesn't mean we're not necessary.
Wow.
I think that it's important to recognize that every generation deserves to experience the local church that's relevant to its current condition.
Hmm.
So there were certain things that were relevant 20 years ago and 30 years ago and 40 years ago that was good and true. And the church has always pivoted and adjusted for the generation that's coming. When I grew up in church, we didn't have screens. When I grew up in church, we didn't have, 3 or 4 services. We didn't have AC. We had little fans at the top, that just,
Yeah.
we had fans but you adjust, you pivot. And we are in a day of technology. And I think that the local church has to embrace it, not run from it, and recognize that the same power that moved in the service in the room is the same power that's going to move through the screen.
Hmm.
We know that because there are 2 instances in the Bible where 2 people get healed in 2 very different ways. There's a woman with the issue of blood where her faith says, "If I just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be made whole."
Yeah.
And the Lord meets her at the level of her faith. But then we know there's the faith of the centurion who says, "Jesus, you don't even have to come to my house. We don't have to shake hands. We don't have to hug. Because I know you are a man of authority, because I'm a man of authority, I know you have the ability to just say the word, and my servant will be healed." Jesus just says the word, and the word is sent through social distancing, is sent to his house.
Yeah.
And we have to have the faith of the centurion that says, "Hey, even if we don't touch you, even if we can't come here and hold hands, the power of God, if we just send the word to your house, through social distancing, the power of God can come and meet you where you are." So I would tell the local church that just because it's new doesn't mean we're not necessary. People
Yeah.
are still getting married. People are still having funerals. People are still dedicating children. People are still getting baptized. People still need to take communion. People still need pastoral guidance.
Yeah.
Do not let technology stop the local church from doing the work of the kingdom.
So good. Even like in the past like this 4 months, honestly, us as a church, we just like the big word was pivot. I feel like every church is pivoting right now. Like
Absolutely.
we went from meeting every week. Like we had our central campus that planted probably 4 years ago, and our campus literally launched in February. So we were a church for 6 weeks. Like
Wow.
so
Really?
we were just getting momentum in our
Wow.
we're the only church within a 40 block radius of downtown Omaha. And it was like a big momentum, and then it was like stopped, but it was like cool. We're going to continue to grow. Like I even talked to my leaders. I was like, no, 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 like this is going to reveal the type of a leader we are, like the type of leader you are. Like what you're doing right now is like, I want to get out of the season better. Like I don't want to wait.
Yeah.
I don't want to pause my pastoral care or just general like leadership to my team. Like I want to lead better. And
So
we actually just came back on Sunday for the first time. It's crazy. So Nebraska's starting to open up a little bit. So we'll take it. But I was like, we had a real church and we had real people sitting in seats and hugging and high fiving, and it was like my soul was like, wow, like I
Yeah,
miss this. It was like me and you can FaceTime, we can Zoom, but like if you and I sat in coffee in Boston, it's just a whole different game. It's like that we just got to pivot. We got to figure out a way because the
got
local church isn't stopping. It's not going anywhere, no matter what government or issue like health issues, anything stops local church.
to.
The
It's
whole
not stopping. It's funny, man. When I released my book at the beginning of the pandemic, I have friends who said, "Don't do it. You know, you're wasting your time. No one's going to buy a book in the pandemic." But I felt like it was my responsibility to keep moving as a leader, as an influencer,
Mhm.
to say, "Hey, I know the virus is happening, everything's going on, but we need some people." Whenever I'm on an airplane and there is turbulence, the first thing I look at is the flight attendants, because if they're calm, I'm calm. And so I felt like as an influencer and as a leader, I wanted to release my book to say, "Hey, y'all, life is still going to continue. Things still have to happen." And let me tell you something, man. We've been selling books like crazy. Books have been helping so many people. I did a virtual book tour
Wow.
on Instagram, which I think was genius. I ended up reaching more people through a virtual book tour than I ever could have getting on a plane and getting hotels. So the
Mhm.
pivot is the right word. I love that word.
Yeah. So you are a 12 out of 10 communicator. I'm just going to throw it out there. You're a baller when it comes to communication. All right. So let's kind of dive into communication.
Yeah.
Um, so, what would you tell a young communicator right now? Like, what would be one or two tips that you would give somebody that's really stepping in? Like, hey, I feel like I'm called to preach or I'm called to communicate. What would be something you would tell them?
Man, I think there's a lot I would say. I think the first thing would be to get under good leadership. Get under someone who can challenge your gift, who will make room for your gift, who will cultivate your gift. I think that your leader's so important. In the kingdom, man, I'm old school. Even though I'm young, I'm old school. I don't believe in dudes just being like, ordaining themselves
Right.
and giving themselves their own authority. To me, I'm old school. Authority comes from a higher figure. You
Hmm.
got to be submitted to somebody who's already speaking and preaching. Somebody's got to validate who you are. I don't really trust what you have to say if somebody already hasn't heard it,
Hmm.
felt it, and said it's good. You need a pastor and a leader to say, no, he's got a word, she's got a word. And if you're just out here just doing your own thing, we don't take you seriously. Nobody takes you seriously. We all love to talk about who we're over, but real power comes telling me about who you're under. We like to say, man, I got 50 people under me. I don't care about who you got. Who are you under?
Yeah.
And because if you're not submitted to somebody, I don't trust you. I don't trust, part of the reason why people put their degrees on the wall is so that when you walk in their office, they're saying, no, I studied. This school validates the fact that I've been educated in this area. And so who's your pastor? Who you submitted to? Who's heard you speak? Who
Hmm.
has testified that, yep, that's a person who's a man or woman of God who has something to say? And then after that, I would say, preach, right? Preach, like actually preach. The only way to get better at preaching is to preach.
Yeah.
And if you're waiting for Hillsong to call you or Elevation Church to call you, you're not ready to do this. If you can't preach to kids, if you can't preach to homeless people, if you can't preach to the Sunday school in the morning,
Hmm.
let me tell you something, man. They put me in front of anybody. I don't care. When you really called to do this, it don't matter. It don't matter if they give me a microphone or a megaphone. It don't matter if they put me on a stage or can you stand on that little box. I come to preach.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I preach so much. My kids hear me preach. I preach to my toys. I preach to my wife. I'm on Instagram preaching. I'm gonna preach everywhere because I don't. It's who you are. It's in your DNA.
Right.
And I think too many people, if you're waiting for the platform to start preaching, you're not about this life.
No.
Get out, tap out, do something else. Because real preachers, they're gonna preach so much they're gonna get on your nerves. You're gonna say, "Man, did you watch the game?" Yeah, I was watching the game, and I gleaned a couple principles. Number one, leadership is important. Like you can't help it; it comes out, it oozes out of you no matter what.
Yeah.
So I would say, submit to someone and actually preach, even when you're cheap, even when you're terrible.
Yeah.
Keep You got to preach your way out of terrible. You got to preach your way into being good. Got to keep doing it.
That's so good. I was talking to a leader a couple weeks ago, and they're really struggling. Like every time they'd say something, I'm like, "Where is this coming from?" Like it's coming from like left field, like that, not part of like any type of culture that we would even be connected with. And I'm like, well, I realized I was like, oh, they're just not submitted to anybody. Like they're not humble
Mhm.
enough to get under somebody. And I really, in that moment, I was like, dude, like here's a reason why you can't get over something. You can't get under someone. Like it's about getting under somebody, getting somebody who's been there. Like, but I think a lot of times, like any of our viewers, I think they have to have like what you said, like a Hillsong or Elevation, like a Stephen Furtick in your life. Like there's Stephen Furticks in your world that you don't even know. It's called somebody who's one step ahead of you. It's not. They don't have to have a million followers on Instagram to be one step ahead of you in ministry and leadership and life. Like I'm still a young pastor. I'm still young, so I'm always looking to like who's somebody who's one step ahead of me who can teach me and bring me where they are. So we always have the end goal in mind. It's like end goal is irrelevant if you don't have a next step.
So good.
That's really a big thing that I've tried to take hold of. So um,
So
more about you though. So what are even some daily rhythms? Maybe some of our young believers, maybe not even believers. Like what does your like spiritual rhythms look like? Like what do you like Bible time or prayer time or just like connecting with people? Like what does that look like?
man, it's interesting. Let me start with where I was when I first got into this versus where I am, because if you try to get to where I am today, I might lose you. Where I started, I would eat the Bible. I mean, I was reading the Bible like nobody's business.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, I'm in my 30s now, my mid 30s. When I was in my early 20s, man, I mean, even when I was 18, I carried my Bible to school. I brought my Bible to school. I read my Bible in the cafeteria of my high school. And I was a cool kid. I was in the in crowd, but everybody knew that I was gonna read my Bible. I read my Bible on the bus. I grew up in a church with my grandfather, so there was nothing but elders. They were all seasoned saints, and all they did was pray. All they did was read the Bible. That's all they did. Now there was some cons to that, because you end up becoming so godly that you're not earthly in any way, shape, or form. That's a whole nother piece. But man, I mean, I just ate, slept, read the Bible. I don't think enough people have really digested the Bible enough. I don't think that many people spend time. I don't even give it a time. Like right now, it's like, yeah, in the morning for 2 hours. I no, I mean all this. You got to get to a point sometime where it's like, this is what I do. Like praying and reading the Bible and worshiping the Lord. I didn't have no time to it. It was what I did. If I had a free moment, I was going to do that. Where I am today is a little bit different, and partly because I have these what Paul would call distractions. Okay, I have a wife. Okay,
Yeah.
I have a son. I have a daughter. So my life is different. When I was single and just doing my thing, I could pray all day.
Right.
Now, when I get into prayer, my kids are at the door, like knock, 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 knock. You know what I'm saying? So my priority is a little bit different. To me, man, where I'm at today, connection to God is a little different. Today, I am looking for my water walking moment. For me today, I'm always saying, okay, God, what water do you want me to walk on today?
Mhm.
To me, closeness to God is me. I'm in the middle of the ocean,
Yeah.
and I'm saying, God, is this you? To me today, prayer is all day, because prayer is faith, right? To
Right.
me, I'm always constantly trying to get into the faith space,
Mhm.
the space where I'm out of my own power and in the Lord's power. So I'm constantly hearing from God and trying to make a faith move where I'm believing God for something. There is nothing like believing God for something that seems impossible and then watching the Lord come through, man. I'm telling you, there is a connection between you and God that happens that's unlike any other.
Mhm.
So I'm telling people that I'm at that place now. I still read my Bible, of course. I pray. But when I was younger, it was really about studying it. Now I'm trying to live it, walk it, apply it. So I'm constantly saying, God, can I step out on faith? Where's my mountain to tell to be thou removed and cast into the sea? And when I get into those moments, man, I experience God like more than ever before, and I love it. It's incredible.
That's amazing. Well, final question, and this might be the most important one. Cam Newton, like, what do we got going on here? Like, what do you believe in him? Like, what are the Pats going to look like with Cam Newton as their QB1?
This is a difficult conversation for me. I'm probably the not the best. I'm probably the worst person to talk to about this because I am pro Tom Brady,
Yeah.
right? So I love Tom Brady more than I love the Patriots.
Mm,
So I am frustrated at how they did Tom Brady.
right.
So I don't know if I can ever love Cam Newton because of the last 20 years. Me and Tom Brady have been like this. I've
Right.
seen Tom Brady in every situation and circumstance. And I think Cam Newton, hopefully he makes it. Bill Belichick is he likes it his way, man. It's his way or the highway. And I don't know if Cam's gonna want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting. But Tom Brady, man, woo, good God, that dude.
Oh,
I mean, one day you got to go to Boston, go to Gillette Stadium. They have an entire, Gillette world there called Patriot Place. You got it. My kids were born. There's a hospital on Gillette Stadium. My kids were born
come on.
in that hospital, so I have a connection to them. But it's going to be interesting. But I'm in North Carolina, so I got the Cam Newton connection. I'm from
Sure.
Boston, so I got the Patriots connection. It's going to be a good year.
It'll be a good year. And I wasn't even going to bring up the Red Sox because I am a Yankees fan, but
Hey,
I didn't
yeah.
I didn't want to bridge that. I didn't want, you know what I mean? I'm trying to like connect us in this conversation.
Don't do it, man. You got a Dodgers hat on, so it's fine. It's
Yeah.
good.
And
We're good.
everyone asks me, I'm like, I'm not a Dodgers fan. I'm just an LA fan. I like Los Angeles. Part of the brand. Get over it. But
Yeah. Exactly. Yep, exactly.
thank you so much for being on. Seriously, it's been awesome just watching you the past year from afar. Now we're talking and having a conversation. Really, that's what this is all about. Just being able to just sit and have a conversation with somebody that might be in a different world than you, might be a couple steps ahead of you, whatever it is. But I think conversations are important. And the local church is the hope of the world. And we talked about it today. So um, I champion you, honor you. You're an amazing man of God. You're an amazing husband and father. And we're blessed to have you on.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you, man. And I look forward to us connecting more.
Come on.
He's back.